Thank you all for coming. Let's like and retweet the room out to get as many people in here learning about emotional intelligence. Welcome, welcome, everyone. I'm so excited that you're all here. I wanted to welcome you all to our 37th episode. This is a space where I want to empower you all to be relationship experts. There is something special about this 37th episode. We've expanded to, you already know, we do X podcasts every week. Now we can officially say we do podcasts as well because we're on Spotify. And this week we've actually added Instagram to the whole mix. So we've got some Instagram listeners this time. Shout out to Better Call Zal for giving some good suggestions with using Restream. So I appreciate you. So yeah, welcome everyone who's joining us from Instagram. Thank you so much for being here. This is the first time we're running one of these. It's every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. A little bit about me. I'm Kimia Shahzadi, founder of Love Story, a matchmaking and love coaching company. So if you ever want any help with finding or keeping love, don't hesitate to reach out. Bit of background on me. I have a master's in clinical behavioral psychology, specializing in relationships. You can read my psychology journals, studies if you're interested on Google Scholar. I'm happily married for 5 years. I've helped over 100 people with their relationships, matched over 20 couples. And exciting news today, I have my husband here. I have my two brothers here, which is so exciting. And we've got a really good topic that we can dive into. So today's topic is emotional intelligence. And so, to everyone that can react, I know X can, and if you can on Instagram, go ahead too. So, please give a heart emoji if you think people are born with emotional intelligence, or thumbs up emoji if you think people learn it. So, love heart for people are born with it, and thumbs up if you can learn it. We got some thumbs down, thumbs ups. We got a love heart. Okay, what do we think? What do we think? We've got a solid. We've got a solid. Okay, beautiful. So we're getting quite a few thumbs up, and I'm really glad to see that because that is the case. So emotional intelligence is something learned, and that's really important for us to get across. That's why today's session is helpful because we can learn. So let's start there. Now I want you guys to put a thumbs up if you feel you know what emotional intelligence is, and if you can explain it. So we got one thumbs up. Got a bit of a silent room. Okay. And that's kind of what I expected, which is normal. So it's kind of like we know, you know, some things relating to emotional intelligence, but we might not know how to best describe it or know in detail what it's about because, you know, with this stuff, we never get taught in school. And how would you know? You know, it's not emphasized so much growing up. So it's kind of this thing that we know exists. We know emotional intelligence exists, but we don't know too much about it. So hopefully this can be just the start of the conversation getting deeper for you guys, and we can go from there. This is obviously a lifelong thing. You're not just going to magically be the most emotionally intelligent person after this session, but hopefully you will know more about it and can, you know, be more emotionally intelligent, like all of us can. We've all got room to grow to become more emotionally intelligent. So let's start with kind of what does it mean, or what is one of the most mainstream definitions of what emotional intelligence is. So it is the ability to recognize and understand and manage one's own emotions and empathize with the emotions of others, which is crucial for healthy relationships. So that's a very, you know, clinical definition of this. And, you know, we're going to unpack it with, you know, I'm going to try and narrow it down in normal words in different situations. And we're going to answer 2 Reddit questions together. I've picked 2 out and they're quite detailed. And so we've got a lot of room to unpack all the emotional intelligence in there. So I'm excited to do that. So let me make an attempt to explain emotional intelligence the best way that I've been able to verbalize it, and happy to open up to thoughts, questions, stories, anything you want after that. So here we go. Here we go. So how do we measure it? So emotional intelligence, there are some indicators, in my opinion, where you can notice, you know, people that have it versus don't have it. And this is a great opportunity for you to actually think about yourself and see where you sit and where your areas of growth can be within emotional intelligence. Because just like academic intelligence, there's so many different areas of academic intelligence, and we might have strengthened some areas and not other areas. So the first step is always awareness. So let's start with, do you love yourself and treat yourself well? And that can apply to a lot of different contexts, like your self-worth, you know, even down to the simplest thing of, do you take breaks? I know personally for myself, I'm not good at taking breaks in a normal working day. So this is a really important area that I need to work on for myself. But I have a pretty strong sense of self with, you know, loving myself and treating myself well. So I feel like from those two, I've got a little more practice at, but the taking breaks part, I definitely need to bump up my game. And other areas, do your words match your actions? So this is really important because it is related to cognitive dissonance, and that shows up in all sorts of mental issues that can come up. But essentially, it's kind of our uncomfortability we have with ourselves when we say something and then we don't do it to follow. It cheapens our word to ourselves, and also other people can call us out on it and make us feel bad about it. So you know emotionally intelligent people can also realize that when they say something, it's good for their mental health, for it to also match their actions, and it's good for their emotions and for all of the relationships around them. So, do you live your values? Know what you want and follow your dreams so you don't have the cognitive dissonance and you can live a full life where you can feel happy for other people's happiness and not put people down to feel better about yourself. So, having healthy ways of kind of making sure your cup doesn't get full, so you have enough space to be able to buffer things throughout the day, or things going wrong, without lashing out at people because your cup is full. So that's another area that's important. Another one, just reflecting on each of your own lives. Do you have healthy relationships in your life where you feel happy, where you feel loved, where you feel like you're being treated well? There could be all different versions of this. It could be with your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband and wife, siblings, parents, relative, friends, co-workers. So, how many healthy relationships do you have where you genuinely feel like, they treat you amazing, you feel loved by them, you feel happy by them? And so that's also another indicator of emotional intelligence. And then also with these people that you have in your life, maybe you've noticed that some people aren't healthy. Relationships that you have in your life, with the ones that maybe aren't healthy, or even the ones that are healthy, are you able to stand up and have boundaries when you're not treated well? Because, we're all human, we all make mistakes too. So, do you have the ability to not be so go with the flow and say everything's okay, but actually when you're not being treated well, to actually be able to express your emotions with that? And is your mindset now an improving mindset, a growing mindset, one where you can take accountability? It's not a really difficult word for you to say sorry. That is in your vocabulary. And you learn from your mistakes. You're not constantly making the same mistake over and over again, or saying no, I'm not going to improve, or using phrases like no, I'm stubborn, like I'm not going to do that, or you can't make me. All of these things. We can all grow and improve, and we all make mistakes, and so accountability is so important, and being able to say sorry is so important. And something that's a really tough lesson for us to learn, and I had to learn this one young, and I know someone in my own life that had to learn this one more recently. But you can't change someone who doesn't want to be changed. And it takes emotional intelligence to know that. Some people have to learn that with experience. Some people can just learn that today by hearing it. And it's a really tough pill to swallow because, when we love someone, or, they're close to us, we just, and if we are like growing mindset, kind of, that's what we do. We kind of think, well, everyone else can do that too. And why aren't they doing it? And, we can just make them do it. Like they'll come around, they'll come around. But some people really are not willing to grow and change. And that's something that we have to accept. And even in psychology, when they were training us, that's something that's important. Even though we're trained literally in behavior change, we cannot change someone who doesn't want to change. And so, we'll ask, questions at the beginning. It's called motivational interviewing, to see like how motivated they are to change and what is the likelihood, or like how capable do they think they are of the change, even if they're motivated. And they can be two very different answers that we get. And for even couples therapy, like if one of the people aren't motivated to work on this, there isn't anything the psychologist can do. If it's mandatory sessions where you're forced for, I don't know, jail or some whatever reason to see a psychologist, just fun facts for you guys to know. Usually the strategy is to just sit in silence and be like, I'm here if you need anything, but I'm not going to make you do anything you don't want to do. And then, yeah, just like see if they're open to small talk. Maybe there was a football game on, and even if they spend the whole session talking about like a football game, that's starting to build rapport. And maybe it's a little more likely towards the end of the session, or at another session that they're forced to come to, that they're likely to open up. So that's like the sneakiest way, like a psychologist is going to try and get you to open up. But we know like we can't make people change unless they want to, or unless they feel safe enough to. So if you're with someone and, one of these people that are not treating you well in your relationships that you've identified now, when you've been thinking about it, just think like if they've told you over and over again they're not willing to change, that's something that that has to sink in at one point, and realize, okay, I can't change someone who doesn't want to be changed. So that's emotional intelligence to know that as well, because you could really even make yourself sick, trying to get people to change when they really can't. Oh, they're not willing to, not that they can't. Everyone can change if they want to. Another thing is own your feelings. So, a huge part of emotional intelligence, half of that phrase is emotion. And so that means being able to feel all your emotions and realize that although society wants you to just, usually just project happiness, because that's all people can handle, you realize that it is something, we're human. We have a whole range of emotions that we experience. And so it's totally okay to feel embarrassed, jealous, angry, I don't know, whatever all the other emotions are. There's a whole book on, how we have like all of these. Disgruntled. There we go. Great. There's so many different feelings. Ecstatic. You got any more?
I don't know. I'm a big fan of disgruntled.
Disgruntled. Okay, it's a good one. It's a good one. We take those. All right. So all of these different emotions, they're totally okay to have. They're very expected to have. And so a part of emotional intelligence is getting real comfortable with your own feelings. That means if you're feeling embarrassed, you're feeling anxious, you're feeling nervous, all of these things, you just own it. And it's okay to own it because humans can identify with other people's emotions. They have it too. So, with people around you, it's okay to say, I feel, what was it? Disgruntled. I feel disgruntled. You can say that. You're allowed to say that. No one can ever tell you you're not allowed to feel a certain thing because you have every right to feel however you feel. And we can't control our feelings and we can't control our thoughts. And so a lot of mental issues actually start up when we try and control our feelings and control our thoughts and say, I need to feel happy, or I need to feel grateful, or I need to feel, I don't know, whatever it is that you're telling yourself you have to feel or have to think. We can't control them. The only thing we can control are our actions. And that's actually the shortcut way that psychologists use to create change for people that want change. So if you want to be able to do something that, you're like, I don't feel good about doing that, or like, my thoughts are not helpful for me doing this thing. For example, I'm just plucking something out of the air. Like if you're trying to work on your fitness and you're like, I'm going to run, you're not going to feel like running when you have to run. It's going to be, I don't want to run. And your thoughts are like, but no, we can do it later. Or is it really that important? Or like, I feel so tired. I feel disgruntled. I don't want to run. So we can't make ourselves feel like we want to run. We can't make ourselves think that we want to run. The only thing we can do is make ourselves run. So that is controlling our actions, which is our behavior. And the thing is, if you do run, let's say twice a week for a month, you're going to be like, wow, I ran.
I'm a runner.
I'm almost a runner. Yeah, I feel like at a month you can maybe you can say you're a runner at 1 month. But, you would feel so like, because your actions are now determining the kind of person you are. And it's so much easier.
They like have an influence on your identity.
Exactly.
Like, what do runners do?
They run.
They run.
They run.
And if you're a person who runs enough times,
you're
going to be like, I'm a runner.
That's it.
I'm a runner, Harry.
That's a good
You're
one.
a runner, Harry. I totally said that wrong.
No, exactly. And so even runners don't feel like running all the time. So they also have to, they don't just have magical thoughts about dreaming about running 24/7. There's definitely a lot of days when they don't feel like running and their thoughts are not helping them to run. So that is a cheat code for so many different things, to just focus on the actions which you can control and not place much importance on your feelings and on your thoughts, because we can't control them. And one of the ways psychologists try and tell that, explain this concept to people is, if they put a gun to your head and they tell you to relax, or like be happy, or they'll shoot you and they're very serious about this. It's not just a threat. You can't relax.
Why am I paying you for this?
So it's like, if we could, we would. Or like if you could just make yourself fall in love with someone, you would do that, but you can't do that. And so your actions are the things that you can control. So please remember this piece. This is also a huge part of emotional intelligence for you guys to know that. I feel like you guys are way ahead of the game if you guys know this stuff. And it is being recorded. And if you want to listen to it again, you can always find it on Spotify. And yeah, so you always have access to this information that you can always go back to. So own your feelings. And then once you've figured out whatever your feelings are, which you can't control, communicate them. And please, when you're having negative emotions and you're upset or you're disgruntled or whatever it is you're feeling, just remember bottling is bad. And I will harp on and on about this because it creates so many problems down the line, and you want to catch it at the bud where it's easy to address. It's going to be uncomfortable. Obviously, nobody likes to hear, just this stuff is hard, but it's worth it because we are avoiding so many bigger problems down the line. So please own your feelings, be able to communicate them by saying, I feel like embarrassed. I feel nervous that you did, this is coming up, whatever it is. And then usually try your best to follow it up with something like, this is what you would appreciate. This is what you want. And then that makes the conversation go to the heart of the topic, which is fixing the solution. And sometimes it's not an actual thing that you need from them. You just need to feel heard. So if you're like, I just need to feel heard, I need a hug right now, I need you to tell me everything's going to be okay. Don't shy away from saying what you need because you want them to magically read your mind and do it. Please teach them what they need to do, and then they'll do it more in the future, and encourage them when they get it right. And so this is such a big thing on emotional intelligence because a lot of people don't know how to have disagreements, and they sweep things under the rug, and then it festers and it gets out of control and it gets really hard to address, and there's so much passive aggression going on. Please, we don't need to get to that level. And some people maybe slam doors, maybe some people throw things, I hope not, but some people may even hit people. There's some crazy statistics out there that in the last 1 year, half of the relationships have experienced some sort of physical violence. So that could even be like pushing someone when you're angry. And most relationships in someone's life, like in people's lifetimes, they've experienced violence. And so no one really talks about that. But emotional intelligence means being able to communicate your feelings without it getting to that level, because you can express it in a way where it can be received and you can get the thing that you need, or at least talk about it. And you can assess the people in your life and be like, hey, are these people actually treating me well? Do I need to stand up for myself? Do I need to tell them what I need from them? Or are they just never going to change and they're telling me that? And so maybe I need to find, surround myself with better, healthier relationships. So, or, if it's a workplace, maybe I need to think about a different workplace. Whatever it is, relationships can be everywhere. And so, and like another one, like the worst one I hear with emotional intelligence that really I'm like, oh no, it's when I'm hearing about, a couple's situation and they tell me that they haven't talked to each other, they got mad at each other for whatever reason, and they haven't talked to each other for 3 days or a week or whatever it is. And that always really, really concerns me, because one of the most like biggest pieces of data that has come out of relationship psychology of more than like 40 years of research is the magic ratio. And I always talk about this, and if you haven't heard about it, please pay attention, because it's the most important thing that's come out of research in this field. So if you have one negative interaction, you need to have 5 positive interactions to be able to have a healthy balance. And so they've looked at this where they've had people stay a whole weekend at a like an apartment, and there's psychologists on the other side behind, like glass windows that you can't see through, and every positive interaction and every negative interaction is being documented by these scientists on the other side. So something as simple as looking at each other and smiling, holding each other's hand, anything that makes the other person laugh, anything that makes the other person shudder or turn away, to all the big things, all of these things are recorded. And the healthy relationships that last, and they don't get a divorce and they're happily married, and they say they're still in love, those people have ratios around the 1 to 5 ratio. So that's where we want to be. And so just think about it now as empowered relationship experts I'm trying to turn you guys into as quickly as possible. Think about it. If someone tells you that they haven't talked to their partner in 3 days, what is that saying? That's saying that there's been 3 days of negative interactions between you two by not talking and just being around each other. And now you need 5 times the size of that to be able to make it healthy again. So that's 15 days of positive interactions. And so if you let this build out, it's really not easy to like bring it back. So that's why we want to make people as emotionally intelligent as possible, so they can address when they feel any emotion quickly and have it resolved quickly, and not have it drag out for 3 days. Because if we can solve something in 20 minutes or by the end of the day, that is so much more room for positive interactions to come back in. So please, guys, always remember the magic ratio. My husband and I actually, like Armand and I, literally like last week, um, or maybe it was the week before that, but Armand was like, "Hey, I feel like we've been experiencing more negative interactions, and it's like bringing me down." So this is full transparency. It's good for you guys to know. Like even the best relationships, they have their moments, and we all have room to grow. So I don't know, Armand. I want you to tell me, like, tell everyone honestly, like, what was your experience, and then what do we do
What is my experience with what?
with when we were just talking, and you were like, "Hey, I feel like we've had like a lot of negative interactions lately," um, and then kind of what happened from there.
Sure. Yeah, I think I was at a point where I just felt really sensitive when something bad happened, and it just felt like something constantly bad was happening. And I told Kimia, and then like the next day she like gets 2 little Pyrex bowls, and She's like, all right, like these on the right, like these are the things you told me that like happened that bothered you. So she put a bunch of poker chips in one bowl, and then she had a bunch of marbles. And so whenever we have a good interaction, I put a marble in the marble bowl. A bad interaction, I put a poker chip in the uh, negative interaction bowl. And yeah, whenever there are enough marbles, I'll take out some poker chips and so on and so forth. Something good happens, I put marbles in. Something bad happens, I take out poker chips. And yeah, I think one unexpected thing kind of there is, at least for me, whenever bad things happen, it's like really easy to see, or they really kind of are very obvious. But knowing that, hey, whenever good things happen, I need to put marbles in this bowl. Um, it has me looking out for the good things a lot more. Something we noticed is that, like Kimio said, a quote unquote positive interaction to a psychologist could just be like one partner be like, "Oh, it's lovely weather we are having," and the other one being like, just like grunting a
And
response.
they look at each other and they smile or something.
And they
Like,
look at whatever. Maybe they smile and look at each other or something. You know, so like, we're not we're not. At least I haven't been counting stuff like that. But at least like very positive things, I've been counting. So for every kind of three marbles, we instead of 5 to 1, we're doing 3 to 1 because we're assuming, about half of the positive interactions, maybe half of the smaller ones, are being missed. So and yeah, I think it's helped a lot to at least see the more positive sides of things.
yeah, yeah, and
I think a couple people
yeah, we
have
got a
their
couple of
hands
people
up.
who got their hands up. I'm really excited, and hopefully we turn this
Hopefully, they didn't have their hands up for
for
like
too
50
long. I
minutes.
know, it's okay, it's okay. We're
My
gonna get
God.
Paymon was first, and then we got Poly TV next. And hopefully we, one day turn this into a game, and you guys can buy it if you guys don't have these items to turn it into, and
We
we
don't have
create
bowls.
I don't know, or like put all these things to make it, and we maybe put some more concrete rules on it. But Paymon, I see you with your hand up, and you've unmuted. Go for it.
Yes, sir. Yes, Doctor. Thank you very much for having me and this opportunity for talking together, again.
Of course,
Doctor, one of, yes, go ahead.
lovely, lovely. Go ahead, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Actually, one of the negative issues that always did upset me at myself personally, you it was that some of people are actually terrorism. Actually, some of people are killer, and some of people are scammers. Some of people are, and you can't actually do anything. You know what I'm saying? And actually, you have any, you haven't any power, and you are powerless. That is the issue. And I don't know how can I, help this. That is the issue like that. Thank you very much for being here.
So yeah,
Of
so just
course.
to summarize the question, you're saying that hey, maybe there are some bad people out there. I think you may have mentioned scammers.
Bro, what I mean. You know, sometimes you actually, as a poor people, actually without any car machine, or something, or bicycle, just you have to that be Valkyrie. It's your right that be worried about these issues. You know what I'm saying? Thank you, doctor. If you can answer to this question.
Yeah, so from what I heard, it was the question about being powerless. And, maybe if you're poor or under, a place that you live where things are out of your control, how do you deal with that if bad people are around you and it's really hard to escape it? And, maybe they can put you down and make you feel anxious. Thumbs up if that's kind of a summary of some of the points you were saying. Like the feeling, yep, 100%. So feeling, that powerless, how do you do? What do you do? And so that's a really good point because a lot of people do feel powerless and they don't even realize that they have any rights at all or that they can have any opinions. And so, and it's very, very easy when you feel powerless to be consumed by your feelings of anger or, feeling powerless. That can be a feeling. And your thoughts just, nonstop being like, this is such a horrible situation. I can't do anything about it. I can't do anything about it. Your thoughts can just be running like this in circles and circles, and you can be feeling horrible about it. And so, within our own situation, I wouldn't know what someone's goals are with, specifics, but I know something that could help is figuring out, what does it mean to have a valued life for yourself and under your circumstances? What is one thing that you can work on that will make your life more meaningful, more valuable, and make you feel like you have more power? So, for example, if I don't know. I'm just thinking of Iran right now, but like, if in Iran, if you're not allowed to sing, for example, singing is illegal, and you love singing and that's your thing. What do you do about that? You can't become a singer in Iran. You can't, easily leave the country. There's a lot of things you can't do. And so maybe this means that, once a year or however often you can, you drive out into the wilderness where no one is there and you make the act, you choose to do that. That's an action you can choose to do. And you sing, um, you know, by yourself in isolation somewhere where you feel free. That's something maybe within your control that you have access to. Or maybe, you think, what is the next closest thing that brings me joy that I can bring into my life that's a little easier for me to feel like I have just that little bit of control? Or for some people, it could be they feel like their life is so going 100 miles an hour. They're barely surviving. Everyone's relying on them. It's so hard to just even take a moment for yourself. So, how can you even do all these things I'm saying? And so, one simple thing might be like when you come home from work, if this is your situation, and you just get met at the door with 50 different things you have to do, or like the kids run up to you if you have kids, or your wife is asking you to do all these things as soon as you get home. Maybe you just ask for 5 minutes. You say, when I come home, I just need 5 minutes to myself. And like, you are allowed to go in your room and do whatever you want for 5 minutes, or it can be any amount of time, and this is just an example. But this is a way where you can take control over a small portion of your life, small enough that it's achievable with your actions, but start giving you that power back. It's really important to start getting your power back, in any way you can. Even the smallest things are valuable, and to even realize that you need it. Like, you need 5 minutes, and even realizing, having the emotional intelligence to be like, I have the right to ask for this. And if people are treating me well and they care about me, they'll understand that this is something that I really need right now. And, maybe if they can't give me the exact 5 minutes as soon as I walk in the door, maybe at 8 o'clock, I get my 5 minutes then. Like, you can always negotiate it, but don't just, and if someone just is like, no, I'm not going to give you your 5 minutes, um, don't give up on your power. You have the right to stand by it and to keep fighting for it. You don't have to always be like, it's my way or the highway. You can be flexible and always negotiate, but don't give up on it. And it's something myself, like, even though I know these things, one of my things that I'm learning with is, um, I've gotten better at this, but I used to be like, I want, I would say I feel, and I would say my emotions, and then I would say what I want. But then if like I don't get what I want, I get very upset. And then I'm like not even trying to negotiate. And I'm just like, it's all over and you can't make it up to me anymore. And I'm just sad. And so, it's not very emotionally intelligent. So I had to learn over years and years and years that um that I have the right to negotiate, or even that I want to negotiate. Like, I feel like I don't even want it anymore if they don't give it to me exactly the way I want. And you know, that's not realistic. That's not realistic. So, and then my other issue was I couldn't even think of compromises. I was just like, I don't even want anything else. So I can't even think of compromises. And then so my husband, actually Armand, he would come up with some compromise ideas for me. And I'll be like, oh, I didn't even think of that. Yeah, I guess that sounds good. And then I usually just take whatever he says. But it's making me practice thinking about negotiating for me to even realize that there's alternatives, and maybe alternatives that I still might like. And then so sometimes he'll just tell me, you come up with a compromise or come up with another one, and then I have to sit there and think, and it doesn't come immediately to me. It's a work in progress. I'm working on it. But hopefully, these are small ways that you can start getting your power back and knowing that you have rights and you can feel your emotions. And yeah, I hope everyone's situation improves from where they are. And I think the first step is becoming more emotionally intelligent and growing with this information. So hopefully that helped. I'm getting some good emojis, so that's a good sign. Thank you, Paymon. Paulie, I saw you also put your hand up, so go for it.
Yeah, no, great conversation. As always, of course.
Oh,
No, I think for me, what in my journey to find my emotional intelligence, I think what's been most important for me to achieve that, I think, is learning, yes, like you said, to allow yourself to feel your emotions, but also to try and pull yourself out of those emotions a little bit and kind of look at them from an objective standpoint. Like understand, okay, I'm feeling a certain way, but why? Is this feeling a feeling that I need to be experiencing the way I am? I think back to you and Armand's conversations recently in spaces where there's a situation where you guys were at the party, and the person mentioned did something. They were making fun of Armand's angelic singing. How dare they? And it made him
How
feel
dare they?
it made him feel a certain way that things unfolded a certain way, right? And in that moment, if we were being emotionally intelligent, it would be, Armand says, "Hey, I felt this way about this moment," and you both come in and talk about it, right? Where it's not,
Mhm.
"I think you're a bad partner because you didn't do what I wanted," which is a
Mhm.
really easy thing for us to think, right? It's
Yes.
Whereas it's, okay, I felt this way because of this, and now you know that, and now I understand that you reacted in a certain way, not because you don't care, but maybe because you didn't understand the way it was making me feel in that moment. So now we're speaking about it. So we understand, where we stand emotionally. In a relationship, I think it's really easy for us, as you were talking about, you say, "Oh, I always want this and I want things to be a certain way," and that you had to unlearn that. I think it's really easy for us in society to view people falling short of our expectations in a relationship and just assuming that it's a sign that it's not meant to be, because it's not perfect. When in reality, it doesn't need to be perfect because we're both going to fall short of perfection, right? It is about the compromise, and getting to that compromise is all about both of you acknowledging maybe your insecurities, maybe your flaws, and acknowledging that you both have them, and that's okay because we all have flaws and insecurities, and in a loving relationship, it, it's important to just come together and acknowledge them together so that you can hopefully find a way to navigate past and around those insecurities, right? But it all starts with the individual, so me or you, it's up to us first to be able to pull ourselves out of that emotional moment, to be able to acknowledge it to the other person, who they might feel bad in that moment, but then they can also look at it from an objective standpoint and we say, "Okay, this is how we felt. How are we going to navigate this and adjust so that we can correct it or avoid it or grow from it, or whatever we need to do in that moment?" So as I said, one of my first spaces in here, the most important relationship we have is with ourselves. So it's start every relationship we have. The health of that relationship is gonna ultimately stem from our the health of our personal relationship with ourselves, and then it's our responsibility to take that and apply it to the rest of our relationships in our lives. I think that's what I think. That's what I feel. And for me, becoming more emotionally intelligent has started with my relationship with myself, and it's enabled me to improve my relationships with all the people around me, or just flat out figure out what relationships aren't good for me, and move away from them and try to find better relationships that help foster better feelings of value and respect and all the things that we all ultimately really want in our relationships.
Love it, Polly. I was reacting with a lot of 100% and love hearts and claps because you're absolutely right. And at the very beginning with emotional intelligence, my first thing for everyone was, do you love yourself and treat yourself well and take breaks when you need them? So I can't agree with you more. It's a huge part of emotional intelligence for sure. And then assessing everyone around you, exactly like you said, everything you said, basically. There was something that you said that actually it was such a good point that I actually haven't elaborated on yet, that it's really good. So, I always usually give you the best way to say things. And I don't really talk about all the ways not to say things, which usually people um, don't communicate things in a healthy way. So, something you said reminded me of that. So, for example, in that situation, just for people in the audience today, the situation Paulie was talking about was, for example, my husband and I were at a party, and my husband is an amazing singer, and someone says something about his voice and says, "Oh, like you were off today. I don't know, like your voice sucks," or something like that. And I don't say anything to defend him. And then he feels, I don't know, disgruntled. I don't know. What emotion would you be feeling, Armand?
Sadness.
Okay, he would be feeling sad. He'll be feeling sadness. So, he would say, "I feel sad," and then, "This is what I need," and we would talk about it, and I would either give it to him immediately, exactly what he wants, or give him a negotiated version. And the reason this is healthy is because he's assuming that we have a healthy relationship and that my intentions are in his best interest. I, think the best of him, want to do the best for him. And so if I hear that he's feeling sadness, I'm going to care about it, which is part of emotional intelligence. And I'm going to do something about it, which is also emotional intelligence, because that's what I can control. I might not agree with what makes him feel sadness. So, he can be like, "Hey, like that comment makes it makes me feel sad." And I can maybe think, "Hey, like that was a joke." But it doesn't really matter what I think about it. because it's affected him and he's felt sadness. And so I don't want him to be sad. I have his best interest at heart. So what am I going to do about it? And you got to remember that's the part that we have control over. But most people, if, it doesn't immediately come to them where they, are ready to change immediately, one of the ways that they might actually bring up this conversation, let's say, Armand could say to me, "Hey, you're such a jerk. Like, you don't even have my back." I felt totally
Character attack.
yeah.
You're
So
a jerk.
you're a jerk. So, he can attack
How
my
do you
character.
unjerk yourself?
Yeah, or just a passive aggressive comment like, "Oh, I can see you." I don't know. I can see my friends have my back, or like,
Are you deaf?
there's so many things you can say that are like, so unhelpful. Or you can be like, "Oh, I don't know. You're so selfish. You're not loyal.
You must not love me.
You must not love me. Oh, do you even love me?
Do you even love, bruh?
Do you even love, bruh?" Like, so there's so many things that people can attack. Like instead of saying, "I felt sad when this happened," they can just attack their partner and be like, "You suck for, just your whole character sucks for not doing this thing." Whereas if you notice very carefully, when I do it the right way, where I tell people to say, "I feel," I tell them to be specific about the behavior that made them upset. So I felt sad when this person said this to me, and I didn't see you do anything when I ideally wanted you to say this. And then, you'd be like, "I know, like, you really care about me, but in the future, like, if you can say something in this moment, something like this, I would really appreciate it." So obviously that's the ideal way of saying it. But just notice the alternative is attacking them. And let's say one of us was emotionally intelligent, had the skills, and the other one didn't. So let's say Armand said this whole thing to me in a beautiful, sweet way, where he said, "I feel sad about this specific behavior. Can you please do this in the future?" I could be like, "Oh my gosh, you are just so sensitive. Like every 2 seconds, you are just like crying about something, whinging about something. Like, what about me? What about me? What about how I felt at this party?" And just flip it around right now when someone is being vulnerable and sharing how they feel.
Or, "Oh yeah, I felt so sad when you did this."
Yeah. Or are you kidding me? Like, what about when this happened 2 years ago and you didn't have my back? What about when I was
Scorekeeping.
seeing? Exactly.
Scorekeepers over here.
That's it. All the scorekeeping. And scorekeeping happens when you don't address things when they're little, and you hold on to them. You got to address them quickly so you can let them go quickly, because it's a mess when you hold on to things and don't address them. So good point there. Scorekeeping. So please notice that we want to say "I feel" and be very specific about the behavior that we're upset about and what we want in the future, and not attack someone's character. And then also when someone comes to you, sharing something vulnerable, and if you want to treat them well, you would make them feel safe about sharing their feelings, and then try and either give them what they want or give them a compromised version that you can, and not flip it on yourself. Like, it's totally okay to address the first person's problems first, and then once that's sorted, be like, "Okay, like, do you feel better about it? Are you okay?" And then, they'll be like, "Yeah, like, I feel better. It's not fully okay, but yeah, I'm, like, in general okay now. Thank you." And then you'll be like, "Okay, well, I'm also upset about this thing, that I wanted to address." And then you can say "I feel" about this specific behavior, and then they can play that position where they can comfort you. And this is so important because, um, you want to remember the "who got upset first" rule, so you can address them first before the other person flips it on themselves. And this is important because they've done, again, a bunch of studies on this. And as soon as you're riled up and your heart rate is over 100, and if you're really fit, above 80, which is a really low threshold, you actually have a less than 10% chance of resolving conflict when you're in that state. So your odds are really bad to begin with. And because you're not going to communicate it in a good way, because you're all riled up. And so the chances are really bad. So that's why you want to have one person upset at each moment, so that one of you guys can play the role of, fixing or making the situation better while the other person's upset. And then once they're good, then you can take the role of being upset. But this is an important note. So remember who got upset first. And if you have a cool smartwatch that tells you your heart rate, please use it for that. If you're just noticing you're like riled up a little bit, just check your heart rate, check if you're over 80 or over 100, and just take 20 minutes, distract yourself, come back, and your odds go through the roof for resolving the conflict. So great conversation, you guys. I want to jump to Reddit questions because it's one thing to hear all this and comment on it and listen, but it's a whole nother thing to put it in practice with a real situation. And these are real situations from, people in the last week or so where they're dealing with these problems. And so these two are a little more on the complicated end. So there's a lot of emotional intelligence situations in here that maybe you can pick up the ones that stand out to you and we can talk about it. I picked two. They're a little long, so you'll have to hear me for a little bit. So I apologize for that. But I thought they were good ones. That's why I picked them. So let's jump in. This one is about a 26-year-old male and a 24-year-old female. And the title is, Do a lot of men lack emotional intelligence / awareness, or is it just him?
Shots fired.
Shots fired, indeed. So there might be some stereotype in there that like men are copying it with the emotional intelligence, but let's unpack what's actually going on in this story so we can kind of decide for ourselves with everything we've learned today how we would help someone like this. Okay, buckle up, everyone. All right, so we've known each other for about 5 months. Things were good at first. For some reason, since day one, I felt like something was off. He lives alone and says that he's been searching for the one since 18. In my religion, we don't get a lot of time to date before moving forward with marriage. That's if your family knows. Some positives from this relationship would be that he makes a lot of time to talk, to meet up with me, which shows interest and commitment. He picks me up and takes me back home a lot of times. We like playing video games together, have similar goals in life. So after a couple of weeks, he convinced me to tell my family. I told a few people and wasn't completely confident telling because I felt like something there was off. I reiterated so much that I am serious about this, but if there's anything I need to know, he can tell me. He said no several times and there's nothing to tell me and was like, yeah, you can tell your family. A couple weeks down the line, his mum told me he's divorced. He did try and tell me things about his girl in subtle ways, but he didn't tell me he was married for 1.5 to 2 years. He blamed her for everything and hardly took any accountability. I was so done. I told him that I can't continue this relationship because he wasn't with me. He begged me and he begged me to stay and wouldn't let me leave for after 1 month. Trust is hard to gain back, but since we had only just met, I gave into giving him another chance. A few days after telling my family, I felt a shift in dynamic where he started to complain or become really negative about things for no reason. His job, his life, and the complaining progressively over the months, it was getting worse. At first, he used to ask me questions, or it felt like we were both in conversations. Seems like all he wants to go on about the last 3 months is himself, his needs, complaining about his job, people who have let him down, his family members who are not around anymore. Just seems like a pity party at all times where I feel like I tried to be there for him, but it's not being reciprocated. I feel like there has to be a level of self awareness of where you should stop and think about how negative you're being and how it is affecting your partner. After several months, it's started to affect me badly, and my mental health has taken a big hit. The last 2 times we've met up, I have felt physically sick. I never experienced nausea, but when I was with him, I noticed that I wanted to be sick. I read up online and it said that the person bringing up anxiety triggers cortisol. I was I was with a family member before seeing him and I was completely fine. So I have no reason to believe it's anything to do. So I have reason to believe it's to do with him. He also has a very negative outlook on life, doesn't care to live, and just wants havoc all the time. He has put me down in very indirect ways to slowly chip away at my self confidence and make me feel anxious around him when we met. A big reason for this is because I felt like he was manipulating me to sleep with him, saying it was safe to do so. We did, and I have been stressing and paranoid about potential pregnancy, and he didn't seem to care. After the first time doing it, he still didn't listen to the fact that I didn't want to continue sleeping with him unprotected. Saying nothing will happen, I felt powerless. Then he would coerce me into doing it again, and I felt like it had such an effect on me mentally, and now I'm now disturbed from it. He has put me through so much, and I felt like I've had an ounce of remorse or forgiveness for him. I felt like inside he's a dark and empty person, and nobody wants to speak to him because I have now seen his true colors. If I addressed all these issues and he just brushes it under the carpet and says, I'm sorry, we won't do that again, then he proceeds to do it again. And I got so mad that I felt like he finally stopped. What does it take for him to realize? It just hurts. I tell him this, and he hasn't supported me emotionally, and I haven't had a genuine apology from him. It's all his selfishness. If I say he's going on about himself so much that I'm tired of him dumping all his emotional baggage on me, he continues to do it. He starts going on and on about how hard his life is, etc. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You're supposed to show me some sort of care towards me and supporting me. And nope, he just ignores me all the time and says that he wants to, and he just brushes it under the carpet. So I feel like he has a maturity of a 10-year-old. He says that he doesn't want to argue with me, and the only person who understands him is his friend. So I'm like, what's the point of being with him if this is what I get thrown back at me? I feel like I never get anywhere when I address an issue to him, and it's like a broken record. And the summary was, partner says they're there for me, but when I address an issue, I'm met with dismissiveness and failure to take accountability. He says he's not selfish, but majority of the time, the topic of the conversation is about himself. Okay, so that was a really long one. Well done for sticking through. But hopefully, there was like so many things in this one. Does anyone want to jump up before I call on Armand to share his views?
Please, have mercy.
There's
Yeah.
so much in
I
there.
have a family.
Yeah, no, I'm exhausted dealing with this dude just listening to the story. This is one of those black hole types, is what it sounds like. Man, these people are really frustrating to deal with. The negative, these people, they just thrive and focus on the negative so much that it really is, it like sucks the life out of the people around them. And it's, I would imagine he, you know, he grew up with some pretty I mean, I don't want to speculate what his childhood was, but I would imagine growing up, he had some real issues in his relationships. And it sounds like instead of getting to the point where he decided he was going to take his life and his happiness into his own hands, he's just kind of floating along and wallowing in his own misery. And it inevitably bleeds into the relationships around him. He doesn't take ownership of his own depression, which is where her pointing out his lack of accountability really, I think, manifests on a deep level. He can't even own his own depression and feelings of unhappiness with his own living situation. It's really, man, this girl needs to get the hell away from this guy, first and foremost. He's got some work he's got to do, but
Absolutely.
this is one of those where it's only going to make her life worse the longer she does it. And I think people like him, they really need to. We can't do the work that we need to in this situation until we really are in a position where we are alone and able to work on it ourselves. But I don't know if this guy is actually capable of doing it. There's some deep, almost narcissistic tendencies here that are. He just might be one of those people that. Oh man, I hate thinking that because you always want to assume everyone can, get better and overcome things. I think we all can, but man, this is. Oh, I feel bad for this girl.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. And I hope that hearing this story just felt like a mess from the beginning. And I was shocked. Like I read this and I wasn't going to pick this one for today, but the reason I picked it was because this lasted for 5 months. And for some people, and there's just so many situations where I think, how could someone have stayed for that long? And it seems to be way more common than we think. And we hear the story and it's so easy to be like, this is so horrible. Why would anyone stay? But so many people stay, and they miss so many different things. Like if you notice, like the things I want you guys to really notice when you hear stories like this is that it was a mess from the beginning. Like she literally said there was something off about him from day one, and she didn't really give herself, like she didn't look into it too much. And then he literally didn't say that he was divorced for 1.5 to 2 years and pressured her with sex, did all of these things to make her feel uncomfortable to the point that she was feeling physically sick. Like, think how much this person has gone through where they don't realize that this relationship is so toxic to the point that it can make you physically ill. Like, not even just mentally, like, really off balance, but physically as well.
I felt physically ill just listening to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
I
like,
like didn't
wow.
want to stop reading when I read it, but I'm like, oh, this has to get better. Like, I was hoping for like some happy ending. Like she was, I think the question at the end was like, I think I'm just done. And I think it was a question mark, but at least she's, getting there and not lasting any more than 5 months. And so
It was like, honey, I was done after paragraph 1.
I was almost done at the first sentence, but it was just something off from the beginning.
He's a
After
26-year-old man.
I feel like I would have killed a whole afternoon just reading all the replies.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oof, yep. No, there was a lot of replies. And so if we're gonna link it back exactly to some of the skills that we learned today, some of the big ones that stand out, uh, you know, words didn't match his actions. So that's a big, big giveaway. Like when you're trying to figure out if you're with a person that you can rely on, spend the rest of your life with, someone who's going to treat you well, their words and actions have to match as much as possible. Like we're not perfect, so it's not going to be a 1-to-1 ratio, but it's strong enough where you can rely on this person. And that really helps with them having less mental health issues because their words match their actions. So there's less cognitive dissonance. So I felt like that was matching from him, where his words didn't match his actions. The other thing is, this girl didn't really know what a healthy relationship looked like. And I hope you guys listening today can have a much stronger sense of what a healthy relationship looks like, which is not this. So when I say, it's very easy to hear healthy relationships as someone that makes you feel happy and loved and treated well. We can all be like, yeah, that sounds great. But what does that actually mean? That means that when someone asks you, how's your boyfriend or how's your husband? You can, like, your thoughts immediately and feelings would be like, he treats me well. I love him. I'm happy to be with him. Like, these are, that's signs of a healthy relationship. Like, if you're thinking, well, I've been treated horribly for so long. I don't really feel loved by him. I feel constantly anxious. I don't feel happy that much. These are all not great things. Like, please give yourselves the respect to be treated better. You guys all deserve happy relationships and healthy ones, and to be treated well, because you guys treat other people well. So please realize when it's happening to your own life, and it's much harder for you to realize when it's happening to yourself. But remember the story. Also empathy. The guy had no empathy for what, all the negative stuff he was saying was affecting her. And she was pretty much his punching bag for everything that went wrong in his life 24/7. And having empathy is part of emotional intelligence, to realize how your actions and words are affecting your partner. And so he didn't take that seriously at all. He didn't take accountability when he hurt her. He didn't improve in his actions. And, although he might say he was changing, it didn't show. So unless, like, he needs to be serious about change, because obviously his actions till now have not shown it. So there would need to be a huge change where he's taking it seriously and it shows in his actions. But please, you guys, the reason I picked this story was that there was so much going wrong with this one, and hopefully it was blaringly obvious to you all. And I want you guys to notice even when the smallest signs like this are happening for you guys, so you can be like, hey, wait a second, am I being treated well right now? Is this someone I want in my life? Is this someone I want to spend the rest of my life with? And these are the best questions to ask before you get married, because it's the biggest bang for buck time, where you can pick a high quality person for the rest of your life, then have to deal with them later on and try and improve the situation. So please, definitely go for healthy relationships, even though it might not feel wild and exciting, or like you're chasing someone who's not going to respond to you, and that feels like they're really unattainable and they're amazing and they're on a pedestal. That's not a healthy relationship. You want someone who's responsive. You want someone who wants to see you. You want someone who treats you well, who apologizes when they make a mistake, who actually cares about what makes you happy and makes and does that for you, and not call someone like that a pushover, or I'm looking for that that love, that crazy love where I get treated horribly. Like, no, that's not the sort of love that creates amazing, healthy relationships. So please take all this stuff into accountability, and have them all as ready red flags to pick up whenever you see them, so you can actually assess the situation a little more objectively. Okay, I'm gonna go to the next one, unless there was anything anyone wanted to say. Okay, we're good. Okay, so this one is a man speaking this time. So let me bring up the second one, sorry. So 35-year-old male, 32-year-old female. So the title on this one is, My Wife Has Zero Emotional Intelligence and It Causes Me an Insane Amount of Anxiety. So I read this one and kind of made me laugh. So I decided to keep reading. So this one's also a long one, so bear with me. There is some humor to this one. This is the last one for the night, so I tried to end on a little bit of a funnier one. So sorry to use the K word, but I don't know how else to make what I'm going through relatable. My wife is essentially a diet Karen. So when I read that made me laugh. So we've been married for a year. We've dated for 3 years before. She was basically a student the whole time I knew her, until about May of last year in 2020. She finished her residency. She's an OBGYN doctor. We moved across the country together and settled down in Tennessee. I love my wife a lot. She is a sweet person, especially to me. She will go to great lengths for me, and she is very loyal. Financially, we're pretty well off, and we both get along with each other's parents pretty well. As far as relationships go, our problems aren't huge, and they're pretty easily resolved, until May of last year, where she was too busy with school all the time, and we never really went out of our way to go shopping, go to eat or anything like that except for special occasions. We were homebodies, so that's just kind of how we are. We're more likely to take a walk than go to the mall and return home and watch Netflix or a movie or play video games together. We really connect well as far as things that we enjoy doing. In the past year, I've noticed that she can make she can make me quite anxious in public. I'm very shy, timid, and I have social anxiety my whole life. I don't like big crowds, being the center of attention, or anything like that. I worked in retail from the age of 16 to 22, and I would consider myself hyper aware of how not to upset service workers. I did everything from wait tables at Chili's to working at GameStop to working at a newsstand at the Chicago airport to working in high volume rest stops in my teens, early 20s as I finished school. I think she's borderline Karen, and I can give a few examples of situations that have burst my anxiety through the roof. I get her coffee every Saturday, Sunday at the shop she really loves. I always get it so they know me there. One time out of the 15 plus times I've gone there, they used regular milk instead of almond milk, and she noticed immediately. I said, "Oh, no worries. I'll just go up there and say something like, 'Hey, I probably forgot to say almond milk. Any chance you can make me another almond milk instead?'" And her response was that I should never admit I'm wrong to satisfy someone else's ego and that she'd go take care of it. I ultimately told her I wasn't comfortable with her approach, and she got highly offended. I never dropped the K word, and she did say, "I'm not some freaking Karen. I have some respect for these workers, and I've been very respectful to them." So I think maybe she might assume she is a bit of one based on that. We have had a different situation where she was trying to get a refund from an item, and the manager she talked to on the phone wasn't there, and they said they'd be. And she ended up getting so upset that one of the employees started recording her on his phone, and then she approached him to turn it off. I was beet red trying to get her to just calm down, and ultimately I ended up resolving the issue through modestly and being respectful. Her approach was accusation by default. There's been other situations that I wasn't exactly there, but had odd outcomes that have never happened to me personally. The first instance, we eloped and wanted some elopement photography. She found someone she really liked and had been talking back and forth to the person for a couple of days and was excited about it. She would make comments to me about how she didn't like certain pictures they took because there was a car or a trash can in the background. Out of nowhere, she's nearly in tears next to me and says, "The snowflake photographer said he wouldn't be working with her." I convinced her to show me the communication, and she said something along the lines of, "I noticed you took some photos that I would find rather unflattering and was wondering if you can work with me on getting some better angles that have a different lighting for my specific preference." And it offended the photographer enough that they essentially fired my wife as a client and refunded her deposit. The last example I'll give is we were at a retailer in a mall, and my wife was being so difficult with the employee that the employee just told her, "I'm really sorry. I'm sorry I can't help you. I'm going to find someone else to help you." Basically, my wife is a good person and a good to me, but it's really worrisome to me that she doesn't seem to be aware that she's the common denominator in a lot of these scenarios. I've never had a service worker try and film me, and I didn't know anyone who had until my wife. I've never been fired by any type of contractor or person as their client. I think my wife's filtering mechanism is just off compared to normal persons, and she sometimes blows things out way out of proportion. I don't want to end up on a public freak out together because she has to experience everything that goes wrong in any situation at an absolute extreme. How can I talk to her about this when she's so sensitive and insistent that she is a good customer and respectful of these workers when I clearly disagree? And the summary is my wife is great until she gets in a public setting. 9 times out of 10, she's okay in those settings. It's that 1 out of 10 that is so anxiety inducing in me that I nearly have panic attacks going and doing damage control for her in public. With divorce and leaving her off the table, can I improve my quality of life and respect to this without making her hate me? So again, thank you for sitting through that till the very end.
So what's the summary?
So the summary is that his wife makes him feel extremely anxious to the point of panic attacks by being upset about external things, and she doesn't think that she's the problem. And the frequency of this happening is 1 out of 10 times. And he's like, "How do I improve my marriage and have her not hate me?" So, emotional intelligence is the topic of today. So I want to ask Armand, what do you think of this one? Let's say like this guy was your friend and he came to you and he was like, "Yo, my wife is a bit of a Karen. I don't know what to do about it. What do you think? How would you give them good advice?
Yeah. So I heard a lot of kind of assumptions there. It seems like they have maybe different thresholds for what's okay to treat someone. And they also may seem to have different assumptions when it comes to, when they feel like they've been treated unfairly. And, where he doesn't really mind who gets the blame as long as he gets the thing done, like with the coffee. He doesn't mind saying, hey, maybe I forgot to mention it. Can I get some almond milk? When she's like, no, it's important for them to know that they were wrong. Um, so the first thing I would do, and it also seems like he feels like she's at a 9 or a 10, and she may or may not feel like, she's at a 9 or a 10. People have different thresholds for stuff like crying, yelling, et cetera, et cetera. So the first thing I would do is try to understand where she's coming from. Try to understand, just try to understand and empathize with her more. The second thing I would do.
So let's say I was the Karen.
Okay, let's say my babes is.
Okay, you're trying to empathize with me, so what would you do?
Are we role playing?
Yeah, let's role play a little.
Okay.
You're empathizing.
So I'd be like, hey, babes, there's some. I don't know. Well, I would start by scheduling it.
Yep.
This is not going to be a great conversation. I'd be like, hey, there's a time I want to talk to you about, something. I would schedule it, make sure, she's whatever, in like a decent mood. I'm not like keeping her from not like holding her back. I want to give this the best chance to succeed.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, like I'm feeling great right now. I have time. Let's talk about it.
And then I would say something along the lines of, in these sorts of situations, I feel uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of whose fault it is, I want to try to resolve these things as calmly as possible. And, 9 out of 10 times, I think you do fantastic.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, then I would, maybe give an example. I'd be like, I just get really anxious because things start getting heated past the point where I'm comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So, the first thing I want to do is, hey, I just want to understand where you're coming from. I feel like things are getting heated, but in that situation, what was going on through your mind?
I feel like I was only like at a 5 or 6 out of 10, but I just cannot stand people not treating other people well. And so customers should be treated well when it's like basic service. Like it's just they're delivering what they said they would. And at the very minimum, they should do that.
I got you. I guess I want to understand in, the situation, let's say the coffee situation. And I'm pretty sure I, told them to get me oat milk or to get you oat milk, but I'm not positive. So I guess, I assume the blame's on me because maybe I didn't say it. How do you feel about that situation?
I don't feel like you need to take responsibility. I think, you've always been given oat milk and then they made a mistake this time and they gave you regular milk. And like, what if I was allergic to regular milk? Like, that's not okay. They should not think that's okay. And so they need to be told, like, it's their fault.
Got it. So I guess where's the boundary for you? What's the boundary?
I don't know. Whenever I feel like something's like wrong.
All right.
Okay, so I want to know everyone. So it's good. You understood a little bit where I was coming from, but you need to jump quick because, obviously there's reasons why why I've reacted like this. And like maybe I don't even know all the reasons why I've done all these things. And I feel like I have to justify myself right now too. And we might be having this conversation for hours. So this can very easily get derailed from this point forward if we stay here too long. So you kind of just want enough information to empathize with me, but then we need to skip forward to the solution as quickly as possible. So it doesn't really matter if Armand thinks my reasons are justified or not. I thought they were justified in those moments, and that's why I acted the way I did. But if you want to affect my future actions so we can have a better relationship, that's what we need to talk about. So you can't control how you feel. You feel anxious when I behave like this. Your thoughts are just like, get me out of here. Why am I married to this woman? What is the rest of my life going to be like? And so you can't control your thoughts or your feelings, but you can control your actions from that point forward. So, for example, something that can be suggested is like, hey, like I realize like I can't control you and how you decide to react to situations. And if you feel like you're treated unwell by like a business or something and you want to fight for your right, you have every right to do that. But I also feel like I'm at the point of almost having a panic attack, and I don't want to be in a situation like that. And so I also have a choice. So you realize you have rights. So, I would love for like the frequencies of these situations to be reduced and the intensity to be reduced, or at least have an opportunity where I can leave the situation and not be part of it, because it's just too anxiety provoking for me. So, like, if I see this kind of starting up and I'm sensing this is about to happen, would you feel comfortable if I just walked away, or said, like, hey, I'll see you in the car, or hey, I'll just go visit this other store or meet you outside? Or, can we have a signal where, I tell you I'm feeling really anxious or close to having a panic attack, or can we, you know, like just, or can we just please try and be more aware of this to reduce it in the future? That would mean so much to me. I would feel so much more at peace and treated well. So
Tara's also got his hand up.
yeah, so that's a good train of thought that you guys have. I know on Instagram, you guys, I put a 1.5 hour time slot for you guys. So it's going to cut out for you guys in a minute. So thank you so much for coming, everybody who's here, and for people on X, it's still going on. So more than happy to hear from you, Paulie. Go ahead.
Yeah, I thought you made some good points there, Armand, for sure. I think the issue here is a lot deeper, and I think Kamia Karen with her coffee thing, what she's not going to tell you, Armand, is that they're likely the root of all this just might be that she doesn't feel you're assertive enough. Um, I think often, sometimes in relationships, the feminine can look to fill masculine roles if they
Mhm.
feel it's not being filled. And maybe it doesn't come quite as easy. I think this woman might be trying to lead by example.
Mhm.
And I bet the fact that it makes him uncomfortable pisses her off.
Yeah,
um,
it
I
could very
think
much.
I think she wants him to be more assertive, and then maybe it's manifesting in situations where it's not really called for, right?
Mhm.
But I think she, you kind of, I was listening to you talk in that role playing, and I was feeling that vibe. You're like, well, I could have been allergic to milk,
Yeah.
like I could, and I was getting that feeling like, I feel like this is the type of stuff when we as men and women come together and talk. These
Mhm.
aren't the things that we men actually hear in a
Mhm.
straightforward manner. It's usually a lot of, it's dancing around, because women, emotionally intelligent women, they don't want to. Oh man, I wish I understood the female brain, but
Or maybe
I
we're just not being clear enough with our feelings. Maybe we're not being,
maybe
so I don't even know why I didn't have a good reason for why I would treat these people these way. But
no,
like
but
it
it
could be
felt
like,
like it
yeah,
felt
but
like
if
you part of you knew, like the way you were talking, it was like you were tapping into something there, and you
yeah.
didn't even, I dealt with something like this recently.
Mm,
I actually had a girl come to visit one of my good friends, and we
mm,
went out to a restaurant, and she got a little drunk.
mhm,
And she's very difficult when she's drunk, and she's kind of annoying. And she started having issues with the servers there.
mm,
And she was being kind of difficult. And I was kind of like letting them know, hey, was kind of giving the looks like sorry, whatever. And I went over and I
mhm,
tipped them really well.
mhm,
And she came over and she's like, oh, why are you tipping them really well? And in the past, maybe I would have freaked out at her or something.
mhm,
But I looked at her and I, in a very calm,
mhm.
manner, and I said, I'm taking care of this. And
Nice.
she just walked away and she sat down and everything was fine after that. So
Mhm,
it felt like I took charge of the moment, and she, in that instance, kind of, she settled back down. It was like she sensed that I was sort of, I wasn't being a jerk. I wasn't attacking her. I didn't like get in her face. It was just kind of like,
mhm.
hey, I've got this, and
Yeah.
that was it. I think, yeah, it was just a really interesting experience for me. It was one of those times
Mm,
where I felt like my emotional intelligence was actually starting to show itself in a
mhm.
moment where in the past I would have really struggled, you
Yeah.
know? And I found myself taking charge of it in a way that I diffused the situation.
Mhm,
Everyone walked away. No one was upset. It was
mhm,
a beautiful thing, and I felt like me being assertive in that moment, sort of taking the role, eased the tension and let everyone sort of mellow down. So maybe this is something that she feels is lacking. Like she's not seeing enough of her man being the man, the assertive, the grounded leader, and maybe she's frustrated that she feels she has to lead a lot. I think that can be an issue in relationships. I
mhm,
don't think the answers to these questions are so simple.
mhm,
I think there's a lot that goes into these things. And if she's great 9 out of 10 times,
mhm,
maybe it's just those 1 out of 10 where she's just like,
mhm.
fine, you know what, whatever, I'm going to take charge you
Yeah.
know it's complicated stuff. That's just I'm going down assumption alley here, and I have no qualms about it. I don't mind at all.
Personality, we love it, we love it. And you're right, like, in that situation, you assessed it really well, and hopefully, like, though she wasn't
Yeah,
bottling
that was a
anything.
crazy response that you
Yeah, I
gave.
know, that was
I
real
heard, I was
bold.
like,
O
oh
oh,
my
dang, like, you know
god.
your, like, rights and, like, you're standing up for yourself and, like, you're standing your ground, and that was really cool, and, hopefully it was all good for her too, but I think regardless of that, you also took into consideration that she was drunk. Like, you communicating with a drunk person, they can get triggered so easily by so many things, and so you really made the right call, and I don't know, you made her feel safe, you made her feel like you were in control, you got this, and, like, she trusted you, so that was, a really good call, and I think, this could be something that, in this situation, I know we're in Assumption Alley, but I think it's a reasonable thing that, you suggested that it might be for some women, like they might feel like that, and the real underlying problem could be that. So if it was something like that, and it takes emotional intelligence for the girl. Like I don't care if she's a specialist doctor, OBGYN. Like, if she's actually upset about her husband not taking charge in these situations, then she needs to own that and take accountability and say, I feel embarrassed that you don't stand up for yourself and I have to stand up for you. And you even go apologize to people when it's not even your fault. And how am I ever going to feel that you're going to be able to protect me when you can't even do these simplest things? Obviously, I didn't come out with, I might have attacked this character a bit with that. So I'm not saying this is the way to go. But, let's say, like, I feel embarrassed that you went and apologized when I felt like it wasn't your fault. And I felt like it made me worried that, this is going to keep happening in the future. And this makes me feel not protected and not safe. So, that's very I could say that. I could feel that, and that could be a very real thing that we have to deal with. And so, I'm not trying to flip it on me. He was upset first. He's coming to me saying he's having like, almost panic attacks when I'm like this. So I have to be careful not to lose sight of that. So, if he's trying to empathize with me, or, hopefully, look, guys, this is a really important part of this. So if I'm feeling embarrassed by my husband doing these actions, obviously this is the first time he's writing about this in his Reddit question. But if I'm feeling embarrassed, I should have had this conversation with him the first time it happened. Or maybe you missed it, you let the first one go and you bring it up the second time. So I should have been the one that expressed my feelings about the real issue and been emotionally intelligent enough to have a real conversation about the real problem. And I should have brought it up first because I am the one with the problem. But I haven't brought it up. So I haven't been emotionally intelligent in this situation. So now my husband is bringing it up, and he's not even bringing it up to bring me down. He's just saying, "I'm literally almost having panic attacks. Can you please help me out?" Like we just reduce the frequencies, or like reduce the intensities, or let's have this conversation. So it's really important for us to address the real issue, like Paulie said, and it's really hard with situations like this because we were in Assumption Alley. We don't know what the actual problem is. We're just assuming. But if the problem we knew was this, then the conversation needs to be like, hey, like I'm happy to, if you like just hold my hand and squeeze it, and that will let me know that I'm freaking out, that you're having a lot of anxiety and I don't want you to have a panic attack, so I will reduce my intensity. But in return, I would really appreciate if you can do like in these other situations where I want you to take control and I notice you haven't, I really need you to step up, and that would make me feel like I have to step into this like accusatory role less. Like, are you open to that? And so, like, we got to have an open discussion about it. It's not going to be easy. He's not going to feel like he needs to do it. I'm not going to feel like I need to give up my rights. And so, we both have to address this very realistically and get to the heart of the problem and realize that we may not agree with the other person's reasons. Like, you might not
Although it
agree.
helps to agree,
It helps to agree for sure. Ideally, we want to agree
at least somewhat.
somewhat.
I feel like, at least for me, it's a lot easier to do something if, like, I at least agree with part of the reasoning. And
Mm.
it's not just, hey, I need to do this, you know, to, avoid your negative feelings.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, ultimately you want to do it because you care about the other person's feelings and you want to make sure that they feel loved the way you want them to make you feel loved,
Mhm.
this is that whole, you guys having the conversation about those jerks who are dissing Armand singing, which is ridiculous and
Yeah,
thankfully should never happen again because no one else would be stupid enough to insult his
that's
voice, right?
that's right.
But
Yes,
going
big
ha-
situation.
having that moment where you guys can talk about it and say, I understand you didn't know that you not responding was going to hurt me, but I'm
Mhm.
letting you know now that that hurt me. So I'm giving you the opportunity in a future situation to be better equipped to know how to handle it, to show me you got my back, the way I assume you do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it, Paulie. Welcome, Mel. So happy to have you here. We were just wrapping up. This is our last Reddit question for today, but it is recorded. It's going to be on Spotify. It was live on Instagram for the first time. So hopefully there's lots of ways to tune in now. But yeah, hopefully you've learned so much more about emotional intelligence. We've covered a lot of different topics for what emotional intelligence is. Then we tested it with some questions that people asked. And then we tested it even further with some Reddit questions where we had quite a few different things pop up. And we had to put our thinking hats on to be like, what is emotional intelligence in these situations? And I think like a big one at the end was realizing that, even saying you're upset for another reason is not emotionally intelligent if you haven't accurately realized what is actually the problem, because, we can address little symptoms here and there, but if there's an underlying issue why you're upset, and this can relate to so many things that you've just bottled and not said, it can be really hard to deal with. So please, guys, catch it in the bud. As soon as you notice, like, even the slightest thing that makes you feel uncomfortable, embarrassed, nervous, anxious, please say it, because it's much easier to address it while it's little than if it builds up and now we have to identify like what it is you're even upset about, and it can be so many little things built up and you don't even know how to verbalize it, but there's a lot there. So please have the emotional intelligence to identify the emotion that you're feeling. Know that you have every right to feel the emotion, but that there's
And
bigger
come
things
up with
at
what you
play,
want. Yeah.
and come up with what you want, and let's talk about the real issues, and figure out what's going on with solutions that we can work on in the future, and not get too hung up on if we agree with them or not agree with them. We just know we love them. We know they treat us well. And please don't hang around people that don't treat you well. That's a given, but part of emotional intelligence. So hopefully that is some really good starting point for us all to think about emotional intelligence a little bit more, and just keep working on this journey. As I said myself, like, there was multiple areas I was working on myself with emotional intelligence. We can all grow, and the world will be such a better place the more emotionally intelligent people are. So hopefully that was valuable. Anything anyone wants to say before we wrap up for today?
I'll just say another great space. Love this conversation. Awesome, awesome topics brought about on the Reddit. I think this is a cool topic. When I saw that it was what we were going to talk about, I actually got excited
Oh,
because this is one of those where I mean we all can relate. Like
mhm,
whether it's we're really good at it or really bad at it.
mhm,
So and I think that as you said to start, it's not something you're born with. So
mhm,
it might come a little easier to some, depending on what your
mhm,
family you're in and the people you
mhm,
grow up around and everything. But
mhm.
um, it's something that when you do get it, it really changes your life. So loved hearing the perspectives and the questions, and I just appreciate the space as always. Thank you.
We appreciate you, and you are the MVFP of the night, the most valuable player. So we appreciate you being here, and it
Let's
makes it
go.
yes, yes, it's happening. Omit's here. He's keeping me accountable with doing those every week. Awesome. Well, have an amazing week, everyone. Wish you all the love lives of your dreams, and I will catch you all next week with a new topic. If there's ever a topic that you would love to cover, feel free to DM me, message me on X, anywhere you can find me, and I'm happy to tailor a week on that, because that's what's important, giving you guys the information that you guys are looking for. All right, everyone. Bye.